America's $39 trillion problem. Who's really going to pay for it? What if every American, man, woman, and child, already carried more than $114,000 of national debt? That is not a metaphor. That is the math. According to the United States Congress Joint Economic Committee, the national debt now amounts to over $114,000 for every single American, and more than $289,000 per household. In 2026, the United States national debt crossed $39 trillion. 39 followed by 12 zeros. And it is growing by billions of dollars every single day. To put that in perspective, America now adds around $1 trillion to its debt in a matter of months. It took the United States more than 200 years to accumulate its first $1 trillion in debt. Now it can add that same amount before most people even notice. This is the story of America's biggest slow-moving financial problem. And whether you realize it or not, the cost eventually reaches your wallet. Welcome to the Money Trail. Let us follow it. If this is your first time here, welcome. This channel is about one thing: connecting the dots between money, power, and the decisions that affect your everyday life. No jargon, no agenda, just clear, research-backed analysis that tells you the story behind the money. Now let us get into it. The debt did not explode overnight. It has been building for decades. The United States has not passed a balanced budget since the year 2000, when Bill Clinton was still president. Every single year since then, the government has spent more than it collected in taxes. And every single year, that gap was added to the national debt. In fiscal year 2025, the U.S. government spent $7.01 trillion. It collected only $5.23 trillion in revenue. That left a deficit of about $1.78 trillion, added directly to the national debt. Think of it like a credit card. Every month you spend more than you earn. Every month the balance gets bigger. Except this credit card belongs to the entire country, and the minimum payment is already over $1 trillion per year just in interest. That is not a typo. The United States now pays more in interest on its debt than it spends on national defense. According to federal budget data, interest costs have crossed the $1 trillion mark. That money does not pay down the debt. It does not build roads. It does not fund schools. It does not improve hospitals. It simply pays the cost of borrowing money in the past. And the pace is accelerating. According to Treasury data, the national debt stood at about $34.5 trillion in March 2024. By 2026, it had crossed $39 trillion. That means trillions of dollars were added in just a few years, even without a pandemic-scale emergency package. The problem is structural. The government is locked into spending on Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, defense, and interest payments. Many of these costs grow automatically every year, regardless of what Congress decides in the moment. Then came another major debt ceiling increase. The One Big Beautiful Bill Act, signed by President Trump, raised the debt ceiling by $5 trillion. The Congressional Budget Office calculated that the bill paired trillions of dollars in new costs with smaller spending cuts, adding trillions more to the national debt over the next decade. And then came new defense pressures, including the U.S.-Israeli conflict with Iran, adding billions more in military spending within weeks. At the same time, the national debt crossed $39 trillion. The House Budget Committee put the scale of the problem bluntly. America is now roughly $39 trillion in debt. It took around 200 years to accumulate the first $1 trillion. Now the country can add another trillion in a matter of months. According to the U.S. Congress Joint Economic Committee, The total national debt now amounts to more than $114,000 for every person in America, and more than $289,000 per household. But here is the part most debt coverage skips. What does this actually mean for your wallet right now? The Government Accountability Office, a nonpartisan federal watchdog, is clear on the direct impact of rising government debt on ordinary Americans. Higher borrowing costs for mortgages and car loans. Lower wages because businesses have less money to invest. And more expensive goods and services. When the government borrows trillions of dollars, it competes with households and businesses in the same borrowing markets. That competition can push interest rates higher for everyone. Your mortgage rate, your car loan, your credit card interest rate. All of them are influenced by the government's borrowing appetite. The Cato Institute calculated that to simply maintain the current debt to GDP ratio, not reduce the debt, just stop it from growing relative to the economy, the United States would need to cut spending or raise taxes by $827 billion. That is roughly equivalent to the size of the entire U.S. defense budget. And right now, neither party has a credible plan to do that. Here is a warning sign most Americans missed entirely. In May 2025, Moody's downgraded the United States credit rating. That made Moody's the last of the three major credit rating agencies to downgrade U.S. debt. Standard & Poor's downgraded the United States back in 2011. Fitch downgraded it in 2023. And now Moody's has followed. All three major agencies now agree on one thing. The trajectory of U.S. debt is a long-term risk. When a country's credit rating falls, borrowing costs can rise. When borrowing costs rise, the interest burden grows. When the interest burden grows, less money is available for everything else. It is a slow-moving cycle. But once it starts, it becomes harder and harder to reverse. So where does this end? The Congressional Budget Office projects that under current policy, the national debt will continue rising sharply over the next decade. Interest payments alone are expected to consume a growing share of federal revenue. That means more of every tax dollar going toward the past. Not schools, not infrastructure, not healthcare, not border security, not defense modernization, just interest. Economists broadly agree on three basic ways to deal with the problem. First, cut spending. That would likely mean touching major programs like Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, defense, or other large federal commitments. Politically, that is extremely difficult. These programs have enormous public support, and any serious cuts would face fierce resistance. Second, raise taxes. But raising enough revenue to make a meaningful dent would require large tax increases, and both parties oppose that in different ways. Third, grow the economy fast enough that debt becomes smaller relative to GDP. This is what most administrations quietly hope for. If the economy grows faster than the debt burden becomes more manageable. But studies have warned that fixing the problem through growth alone would require sustained economic growth rates the United States has not consistently achieved in decades. There is no easy answer, and the clock keeps ticking. This brings us to the most important question of all. Who is really going to pay for $39 trillion of debt? The honest answer is future Americans. Through higher taxes, higher borrowing costs, slower wage growth, and a government with less money to spend on the things that matter. The debt is not just an abstract number on a government website. It is a claim on future American income. Every dollar borrowed today must eventually be dealt with, either through repayment, refinancing, Inflation, higher taxes, spending cuts, or slower growth. That is the money trail. And it leads directly to the next generation. Let us bring it back to where we started. $39 trillion. More than $114,000 for every American. More than $289,000 per household. Interest payments above $1 trillion a year. Credit rating downgrades from all three major agencies. And a political system with no clear plan to fix the problem. The official narrative says America is too big to fail. The dollar is the world reserve currency. Investors will always buy U.S. debt, and growth will eventually take care of the problem. Maybe, but the data from the Congressional Budget Office, the Government Accountability Office, the U.S. Treasury, Moody's, and the Joint Economic Committee tells a more complicated story. The debt is structural. It is growing faster than the government can comfortably manage. And the cost is already being felt in your mortgage rate, your car loan, the goods you buy, and the wages you earn. That is the money trail. And now you have followed it. If this video helped you understand something that mainstream media often glosses over, hit subscribe. Because every week, we follow a new trail. And there is always a new trail to follow. I am the Money Trail. See you next week.